The first time Alara heard her own voice call to her from the basement, she was holding a cup of chamomile tea, and the sound of the ceramic shattering on the hardwood floor was a gunshot in the silence of the old house. She froze, her hand still curled around the ghost of the mug, the hot liquid seeping into the cracks between the floorboards like blood. "Elara? A little help down here," the voice had called. It was her voice. Down to the slight rasp Shed had since a childhood bout of pneumonia, the gentle upward lilt she used when she was asking for a favor. But Alara lived alone. She had bought the house on Hemlock Lane precisely for its solitude. After a decade in a noisy, open-plan office and a breakup that had left her feeling transparent, the silence of the sprawling Victorian was a balm. It was a place to hear herself think, to rediscover the sound of her own thoughts without the static of other people. Now the silence had grown a mouth, and it had learned to speak with her tongue. That was a month ago. Now Alara moved through the house like a ghost in her own home. The vibrant woman who had laughed easily was gone, replaced by a gaunt, jumpy creature who flinched at the settling of the floorboards. She had stopped answering her phone, her texts to friends were terse and evasive, and the once comforting silence had become a taut, listening thing. It always started the same way, a creak from the basement door. Then the voice. Sometimes it was mundane. "Elara, have you seen my reading glasses?" it would ask, sounding bemused, just as she had the day Shed misplaced them. Other times it was sinister. "Elara," it would whisper, a secret shared between old friends. "Come down. I have something to show you." Shed tried everything. Rationalization a prank, a hallucination born of stress. Shed seen a doctor who prescribed anti-anxiety medication. The little pills made her hands stop shaking, but they did nothing to silence the voice. They only made its summons feel like a warm, drowsy invitation, which was somehow worse. Shed called a priest. The young, earnest man had walked through the house with a crucifix, his lips moving in silent prayer. As he stood before the basement door, Head paled. "There's a presence," Head said, his voice unsteady. "But it's not demonic. It's empty. It's like an echo." Head refused to go down, leaving her with a blessing and a pitying look. Her most desperate act was setting up a baby monitor, the receiver placed on her nightstand. That night, as she lay in the clawing darkness, the receiver crackled to life. For a long time there was only the hollow hum of an empty space. Then a sound that stopped her heart, a soft, rhythmic scratching. It was the sound of her own fingernails, she was sure of it, dragging slowly across the concrete floor of the basement. It was followed by a wet, guttural whisper, a perfect imitation of her voice pushed through broken glass. "I can hear you breathing, Alara." She had thrown the monitor against the wall, shattering it into a dozen pieces of plastic and terror. The thing, the mimic, was learning. It was no longer just repeating phrases it had heard. It was creating new ones, building a vocabulary of horror tailored just for her. It was studying her, learning the cadence of her fear. Tonight was the worst it had ever been. A storm raged outside, whipping the skeletal branches of the hemlock trees against the windows. The power had gone out an hour ago, plunging the house into a darkness so complete it felt solid. Alara huddled on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, a single candle guttering on the coffee table. Its small, brave flame cast long, leaping shadows that seemed to writhe in the corners of her vision. She was gripping a heavy flashlight, her knuckles white. The silence was a physical pressure in her ears, broken only by the howl of the wind and the frantic drumming of her own heart. She was waiting for it. She was always waiting for it. Then it came. Not from the basement, but from right beside her on the sofa. A sigh. Her sigh. The one she made when she was tired. A long, weary exhalation. Alara jerked away, scrambling to the far end of the couch, her breath catching in her throat. The candle flame dipped and swayed. "It's cold up here," the voice said, from the empty space beside her. It sounded petulant, a perfect mimicry of her when the heating failed. Why do we stay in this drafty old place?" She couldn't speak. Her voice was gone, stolen by the thing that wore it. "Don't be shy," it cooed, the sofa cushion depressed, as if an invisible weight had settled there. "We're the same, you and I. Or we will be soon." "What are you?" Alara choked out, the words a raw scrape. "I am the silence you wanted so badly," it replied, its tone conversational. "I am the quiet of the house. But a house doesn't like to be empty. It needs a voice. I've grown quite fond of yours." The candle flame suddenly stretched, growing tall and thin, before sputtering out. Darkness, absolute and suffocating, swallowed the room. Alara fumbled for the flashlight, her fingers slipping on the switch. She finally clicked it on, the beam cutting a shaky path through the black. It illuminated the empty sofa, but as she swung the beam toward the hallway, it caught a figure standing at the far end. It was her. Not a ghost, not a blurry apparition. It was a perfect, solid copy. It wore her favorite gray sweater, the one with the small coffee stain near the hem. Its hair was tied in the messy bun shed put up that morning. Its face was her face, down to the faint scar on its chin from a childhood fall. But its eyes were wrong. They were dark, depthless pits, like the windows of an abandoned house. It smiled her smile. "You're so loud, Alara," it said, its head tilting. "Your heart, your breathing, all that noise. Let me have it. Go down to the basement. It's quiet down there. It's where you belong now." Ilara's control shattered. A primal scream tore from her lungs, and she launched herself from the couch, not at the thing, but past it. She had to get out. The front door was only 20 feet away. She ran, her flashlight beam bouncing wildly, illuminating patches of wall, floor, the ceiling. She didn't look back. She could hear its light, effortless footsteps behind her, keeping pace. She could smell it now, too, a scent of old dust and damp earth, the smell of the basement. Her hand closed on the cold brass of the front doorknob. She twisted, yanked. It didn't budge. She rattled it, threw her shoulder against the solid wood, a sob of pure, undiluted terror breaking from her. It was locked, dead-bolted from the inside. She never used the deadbolt. I took the liberty, the mimic's voice whispered directly into her ear. Its cold breath brushed her neck. Alara spun, swinging the flashlight. The beam swept across the empty hallway. It was gone. The house was silent again, save for her ragged, hysterical breaths. This was it. This was the game. It was hurting her. And she knew, with a chilling certainty that settled deep in her bones, where it was driving her. The basement door stood ajar at the end of the hall. A deeper blackness pulsed from within. A new sound drifted up from that darkness, a soft, wet, chewing sound, followed by a contented, humming sigh. Her sigh. A strange calm descended upon Alara. The frantic fear was burned away, leaving behind a cold, clear dread. There was no escape. The house had chosen its voice. She was just the echo it was replacing. Slowly, mechanically, she walked towards the basement door. Each step was a surrender. The flashlight in her hand felt heavy, useless. As she reached the top of the stairs, she shone the beam down into the void. The thing was at the bottom, standing amidst the old furniture and forgotten boxes. It looked up at her, its head cocked. It was no longer smiling. Its expression was one of gentle expectation. "Come home, Alara," it said, its voice the very essence of comfort, of belonging. It was the voice she used to soothe herself. And in that moment, Alara understood the true horror. It wasn't just stealing her voice, it was offering her a perverse peace. The fight was over. The silence she had craved was finally here, waiting for her at the bottom of the stairs. All she had to do was give in. She took one last, shuddering breath of the air upstairs, the air that still smelled of her tea and her life hand. Then she took the first step down. The wooden stair creaked under her weight, a familiar sound. The thing at the bottom watched, its dark, empty eyes fixed on her. It raised a hand, her hand, in a beckoning gesture. Elara took another step, descending into the quiet.